Welcome to Road Car to Rally Car. In this show, the car is the star. The World Rally Championship can pride itself on an illustrious history of iconic machines that, due to their success in rallying, have become famous road cars in the public domain. Sebastian Loeb claimed an unheralded 7th title in a Citroën C4, but the great thing about rallying is you can buy a very similar version in your nearest showroom. In this programme, we'll show you how a top-level World Rally team transforms what you'll pick up from your local dealer into what they hope will be an all-conquering rally car. Coming up, Mini have announced that they will re-enter World Rally for the first time since the 1960s.
We've been working on this for a number of months now, and the car is coming together, not quite finished yet, but we're very excited that this is an important step for Mini.
We have the exclusive footage of the whole process of transforming the Countryman into a WRC star of the future. As regulations change for the 2011 season, Ford and Citroën will bid farewell to the Focus and C4. We ask them the key factors in turning these modern WRC cars from road cars to rally cars. Along with Mini, both teams will launch new cars to meet these new FIA regulations for 2011. We take a look at how these new generation of rally cars is shaping up. But first, let's set the scene. What exactly determines if a road car will make a good rally car? And also, what are the basic differences that transform the road car into one capable of jumping 70 metres in a finished forest at 200 kilometres an hour?
We take the regulations, look what would be the ultimate, and then apply the car to that. So I think it's broken up into probably 6-month sectors. The first is the generic design, then you're starting to do detailed application of the car to those designs. Then you're looking at another 6 months to do the detailed drawings and manufacturing of prototype parts. Gearboxes and things take sort of 16 weeks to deliver and things, and the engine development. And then about another 6 months for the testing program. So you're looking at this 2-year gestation period from original thought process to delivering the car.
The body shell is the standard body shell, the engine block is the same block, and the cylinder head is the same cylinder head as the road car, because that is, again, is the FIA regulation. So as I say, it's the small things, just the detail things to take the weight out, because of course we've got a minimum weight to work to, and of course we want to get the cars as light as possible and be able to ballast them until we can put the weight where we want so that we can gain the performance.
The car retains quite a lot of the sort of DNA of the road car. It genuinely does. I know people can be a bit sceptical and think, you know, how can a £300,000 car have any relationship to the £20,000 one I can buy in the showroom? But it is there in the DNA that we can't change the shape of the car, we can't change the fundamental layout of the car, the engine position and so on. They're all tied down within fairly tight tolerances. And the car is built up around a standard body shell. Okay, we put a roll cage in, which brings a lot of extra strength to the car. We can adapt the suspension and engine and so on within limits. But there, if you look closely in it, you can still see in a rally car where it came from. And there are features of the road car which will have a fundamental influence on the performance of the rally car that we can't change.
To do a very good rally car, you have to think to 100 things. You need a good team, a lot of good engineering, and it is never finished. When we go a lot in tests, more you run, more you learn, and when you have a problem, you have to cure this problem as soon as possible, so you can progress like that. And it's a total of a lot of small things in the right direction.
With Sebastian Loeb and Citroën already crowned as the 2010 World Champions, excitement still buzzes through the service park as attention turns to next season. The principal generator of that buzz is the much heralded return of the iconic Mini to World Rally in 2011.
Well, clearly rallying is part of the Mini's history, going back all the way to the early mid-60s, and so the heritage is there. So this is a chance for Mini to really build on some of that success.
Now owned by the BMW Group, Mini have teamed up with World Rally experts ProDrive, who developed the Subaru Impreza into a 3-time manufacturer's world champion, with 3 driver world champions in Colin McRae, Richard Burns and Petter Solberg. What we have here is 2 of the biggest names in rally history making a comeback, united in their aim to make Mini a household name to the new generation of rally fan.
When one thinks of it in a British context and considers the impact this is going to have on motorsport in the UK. We've had the great heroes of Colin McRae and Richard Burns. I guess there are not many of the younger fans who perhaps remember so easily the days of Paddy Hopkirk and the Mini and the great extraordinary feats that he achieved with that car in those days when it turned up winning Monte Carlo. In those days it was more significant, quite frankly, than Lewis Hamilton and Jenson Button winning the World Formula One Championship.
ProDrive and Mini have selected the new four-wheel drive Countryman as the basis for their entry in the championship and have been busy in development for the past 18 months. What you're about to see now is exclusive footage of the development of the latest road car into a rally car.
When I get up in the mornings and come down to the factory here and have a look round quietly on my own and look at this car and imagine what's ahead of us, I've never been so more excited than any other motorsport program I've ever been involved with.
Right now we're at the stage in the program where it's starting to get exciting. The first body shell's now back painted and we're starting to assemble it. We're a couple of weeks away from when we get our first engine, and within a few days of that we should be ready to go testing. We've put together a really strong team here now of not just designers, but we're starting to bring together the core of the team. A critical part of making this whole thing work is that teamwork, and the whole relationship with Mini and what their objectives are and fitting them with ours is a critical part of making this work. You know, a team only works if everybody's pulling in the same direction.
The main challenges we face when we do the job of converting these cars from a road car to a rally car is we've got an interesting balance between performance, reliability and cost.
Our team was tasked with achieving a rally car within a fixed budget, and we agreed that from day one. One of my most difficult tasks that I have to do on a daily basis is ensure we are still on target for a winning car, on target within budget.
There's no let up really. I think even though we're starting to bolt the first bits onto the car, we're still flat out on everything else, trying to get everything ready so that when we come to fire the car for the first time, it's a complete car.
Over the next few weeks is the really exciting time for me. This is where all the bits that we've drawn start to arrive on the shelf and get built into the car. There's nothing quite like seeing the components that have been designed, picking them up, feeling them, weighing them and so on, to complete the circle. So what we've got here is what we're calling our mock-up car. We've got a very early body shell that's been around the block and knocked about a little bit and probably would have found its way to a crusher. And gradually, as we design components, we will either make a rapid prototype with this machine over here, make a plastic replica of the actual component that we will receive when the time comes. And it means that we've got something physical we can come and look at and see and try things, because no matter how sophisticated the computer-aided design, no matter how sophisticated that is these days, there's still nothing like coming out here. The designers can come and look, and the guys can give them their opinion about whether it's realistic for this component to fit here, or we can't bend a pipe that tight or whatever, and we can just make sure. And I've sat in this car and held the steering wheel and said, yeah, I can see over the bonnet, those kind of things, just to give us that confidence. So you can start to get a feel for how it's coming together. If you look at the interior now, it's an interesting mix of the actual components, still some of the prototype parts. For example, the seats and the seat position are as we intend them to be. The principle is that we try to fix the seat position and then move the pedals and the steering wheel to the driver, rather than perhaps say you'd be more used to in a road car, where you would leave the pedals and the steering wheel where they are and move the driver in his seat relative to that. You can see that now as you look here, that it starts to look like a rally car. I guess I would describe this as the phase one. This is still, as you can see, we're still being creative at the moment. Paul's here looking at how do the bits that we've designed come together with the standard bits like the bonnet that we have to retain to get those details right, the way we seal the bonnet to the windscreen and so on. So really we're still at the creative side of things, and we're in the process of the next phase, which is actually putting all that together and building the test car. So this is really the handover between those two things. There's the last few details to sort out, but this is the actual test car coming together to run in 3 or 4 weeks from today.
Ford Escort is one of the best-selling road cars in the history of the Ford Motor Company. Its history in the WRC dates back to the late 70s when it took the sport by storm. Its numerous rallying victories helped make the Ford Escort an iconic road car.
It was a very good car and one of the classic, but for this type of ground, like in Sweden, or on all the gravel rallies, where the best drivers on those surfaces were driving this car. Really, at this time, the Escort was one of the best cars.
It was so controllable, it was easy to set up and run, the drivers could extract fantastic results and performances from them because of the nature of the car. It wasn't a particularly high-tech car, but it was strong, it was reliable, easy to drive, easy to service, and the way to drive it quickly was to set the car up sideways before the corner, power it through. The car was very nicely balanced. You could get through a stage very quickly that way. It's probably not the quickest way now, but the cars have advanced quite a bit, but in those days it was the machine to have.
Such a fantastic car to drive, so easy to drive. You could drive it so sideways, and to the point where you could be looking out of the rear side window and you still, wouldn't go off the road, sort of thing. So it was just a great all-round car. It delivered so many victories on things like the RSE rally. It was something like 10 years on the trot or something like that. So it's an incredible record. So it's obviously a great base platform of a car, and made a lot of people have a lot of victories, a lot of fun.
Until 2006, this was the only car with which Ford won world titles. They took the manufacturers and drivers' crowns with Bjorn Voldegaard in 1979, and in 1981 it was the turn of Ari Vatanen.
Very spectacular car, and that PD engine, that was a music to one's ears. It's a very strange expression, but when you heard it in a dark forest, you heard that if you were spectating, you could hear the PD engine, for miles and miles away.
It was always a spectator's favourite, made a wonderful noise, and it was sideways, and it had the iconic drivers like Ari Vatanen, Bjorn Voldegaard, Hannu Mikkola, Timo Mäkinen. All the greats drove that car.
Do not go anywhere. In part 2, we take a look at the developments of Ford and Citroen's current World Rally cars, and things move on dramatically for the Mini.
This car has to be fast when it comes off the blocks.
Welcome back to Road Car to Rally Car. Sebastian Loeb is the most successful WRC driver ever, but most of his recent success has been behind the wheel of the now infamous Citroën C4. This is arguably the greatest WRC car in recent history, which will bow out at the end of the 2010 season due to the regulation change. Its 4-year reign saw it dominate the WRC from start to finish. The road car version won the World Car Design of the Year award in 2006 and selling over 500,000 units in its first 3 years. But how do you transform this standard hatchback into the world-conquering WRC car?
I think the size is something very important. You cannot do a good rally car with a very long and heavy car, so you have to find the right size to suit to the regulation and to be performance. It's a lot of changes that we do on this car compared to the road car.
The first thing is to transform the body shell for the stiffness and safety. We modify the center of the body shell to transform the standard car to four-wheel drive, because it's C4 is a two-wheel drive. We must design new suspension, new transmission with new gearbox, and we improve, of course, the engine, and we add a turbo.
The transformation of the road car into the rally car takes place at the Citroën headquarters in Paris.
This is the main assembly area. This is where we build all the rally cars.
At Citroën Racing, we build the car ourselves from scratch. It means that the car arrives here with the body shell naked from the factory. At this point, the mechanics will build the roll cage inside the car, which is around 40 meters of tube, to make sure the car is strong in case of impact and protect the driver and the co-driver, but also to comply with the FIA regulations. One more department I wanted to show you is the engine department and the engine test bench. For Citroën Racing, it's a really important department as we design and build our engine ourselves in-house.
This is where the road car really becomes a rally car, the testing and configuration of the engine.
It is the engine in the same position like in the car, and we put more sensor than in the car. With this machine we can simulate every WRC stage. When we simulate a stage, it's necessary to modify the parameters like temperature, like altimetric pressure, and we also control the engine speed. If we want, in few minutes we can simulate a special stage, like in Mexico because there is altitude parameters, like Sweden because it's cold, and Jordan because it's hot.
Once the car leaves the factory, it's time for intensive testing around the world. It's over to the guys whose opinions really count to finish off this extraordinary transformation.
I just sit here in the car. The engineer are making the calculation and doing a base setting, and then we start from this and we say, okay, the car is maybe too much understeering, oversteering, too much bumping, and then we try to adjust this to work together to find the solution to the complaint of the drivers. And I would say the final setting of the car, it's the driver who decides. So it's really a question of feeling of the driver.
Time to head back to ProDrive for the ongoing development of the Mini Countryman from road car to rally car.
It's relatively easy to make a very strong, reliable car, and it's relatively easy to make a very fast car. What is really difficult is to hit just the right balance, so where you've got a car that's faster than anybody else's and more reliable than anybody else's. That's really bloody difficult. I think the suspension is probably the area of the car where we have to be most careful and where we're under most pressure. A rally car, you know, it's sort of the biggest single element of where it's different from any other racing car is in the suspension. You know, the variety of terrain, the abuse that it gets, and the conflict between durability and performance. If we set the wrong targets, we're in trouble. If we want the car to be fast, we've got to go as far as we dare towards making all the suspension components light. If we go too far, the first time we get to a big rock or a big jump, the wheels fall off. Perhaps the hardest thing at this stage is not to rush it too much. You know, we're always under time pressure at this point in a project. We're all itching to get the car out onto the track and run it as soon as we can. But taking your time at this stage, measuring things, inspecting things properly, checking the way that things go together, checking the tolerances and so on, is the secret to getting it right first time. We've got here the main part of the upright. This has been a focus of a lot of attention in the design office. We did a complete review of the design targets and the manufacturing process to see if we could set new targets for lightweight and production cost.
We did a component count on this on the upright. It's something like 70 components just in the one package about this size to hold the wheel on.
The engine is a collaboration between ourselves and BMW Motorsport. BMW Motorsport, I would have to say, are doing most of the hard work. They're the guys that are creating the base engine. Our role in it is to think about how it will perform in the rally car as opposed to in a racing car. So we have to think about the extra control that you need in a rally car compared to a racing car, the kind of characteristics you need in a rally engine as opposed to a racing engine, and we'll have to then make sure that the engine performs in the car the way that a rally driver expects it to, which is slightly different. I mean, it's a completely different environment to a racetrack.
2 weeks have passed and things have moved on significantly at ProDrive.
I can tell, talking to the designers, they see all these bits coming in from the suppliers. The gearbox arrived from X-Track today. It went in perfectly. Some of the clever ideas that are included on the car are actually proving to sort of slot together as anticipated. There's still a lot of testing to be done, still a lot of proving to be done, but nonetheless, the sort of the concepts they now can see coming in real material way. So it's, and tomorrow we've got the head of Mini Worldwide coming here. He's coming to have a look at the progress, to sort of talk through the plans and the launch arrangements.
The goal for tomorrow, when we've got a VIP visit, is for them to see that the car is all but complete, to see how far we've got on with the project, how well things are progressing, that we're on schedule, and that, you know, the quality of the work we've done hopefully will speak for itself. You only make one first impression, so we need to make sure it is a good one. Gradually over the last few weeks it's turned from, you know, from the computer screen to real components, and you can see behind me a car coming together. But I think what's important about tomorrow is that the program and the objectives suddenly become much more real. Clearly it's our aim to be competitive from the beginning. The program will certainly ramp up. We wouldn't expect, as we stand here today, to be coming in next year and winning every rally. But there is, make no mistake, in the way we've approached it, we haven't allowed some long period for developing the performance of the car.
This car has to be fast when it comes off the blocks.
Today really is a big day. We've got these VIP visitors today from, you know, BMW board members coming to have a look at how we're getting on and formalise things with David. And yeah, it was an important milestone for us as well to get the car down on its wheels. So yeah, things are building up nicely.
Now you're at the 11th hour. Because now reality comes quickly, and then you see whether it works. To see the guys working on the finite detail here, and I think some very exciting mathematical models, but at the end of the day, racing is racing, and all will be revealed once we get the car out on the road and we've done the testing, and then we take the next move forward. But I think the preparation has been exceptional.
You simply have to underwrite it.
Simply.
Yeah.
No, the same one.
Wow.
Right, congratulations. The fact that Mini is going to return to the World Rally Championship is probably the biggest news that's happened to the WRC in many decades. It is a vindication that the World Rally Championship is going in the right direction again. It's a vindication of the technical rules that they allow us to build a competitive car that's going to be built economically. And a brand as powerful and as so international as Mini, to see the World Rally Championship as being a valid marketing platform for them, is a great tick in the box for the championship.
Mini are re-entering the sport, but one car that has established itself as one of the greats is the Ford Focus. Colin McRae, Carlos Sainz, Marcus Gronholm and Petter Solberg, 4 world champions who've all driven Ford's ultimate WRC car. Making its debut in 1999 with Colin McRae, the Focus went on to win 2 events in its inaugural year. Everyone involved in rallying stood up and took notice of this new machine. It was the relationship between Ford and M Sport that was the key to their success.
So very strongly linked with Ford, with the manufacturing and the design side. We were very involved in the very first Focus. At the same time as they were designing the car, and we did incorporate quite a few things that we needed, and of course we launched the rally car in Paris in 1998 at the same time as they launched the road car. So we had a real close involvement right from the outset, which again was a big advantage to us.
It takes a certain type of person to create the innovations that give their drivers the cutting edge.
I think you need to be kind of crazy a little bit, just get those crazy ideas and then work those out to be as a rally car, and many times
You know, it can be something that feels like there's no way it can work, but then when they design it and plan it and put it in a car like as whole together, it just works. So they are very talented.
What's important from the road car is the chassis, because you have to keep the base of the chassis and the architecture of the car, so its length, its width. What's very important is the front suspension. With the World Rally Car regulation, the front suspension is to be based a lot on the road car suspension. On rally car, we've got 2 times the suspension travel as the road car, and to package that is very difficult with the transmission, drive shaft, travel and angles. It always tries to clash with everything. That's always the challenge, is the front end. We start working on the engine on its own. The transmission guys work on the transmission for the layout and so on. They work on that. In parallel, we will work on the shell, on the body shell, for all the roll cage design and stiffness and crashworthiness. And then in parallel with that, we will work on wind tunnel exercises as well. All the program runs in parallel, and at the end all goes together.
To complete the transformation from road car to rally car, it's over to the drivers.
Well, now when we start testing and do the final tuning and final setups for rallies, we're going to be involved of that, of course. It's going to be all about basically drivers and the team as well to work together.
You can still modify things if you are not happy with the position of the handbrake levers and everything like that. So, and if you notice that some things didn't work at the first time and the driver says that, you know, the diff is not so good, so you can change the diff. So quite a lot, you know, things can be changed.
After 11 years in the World Rally Championship, the focus will shake down no more. How much has Ford's success in the WRC contributed to making the road-going Focus such an important car?
Ford and rallying, there's a tremendous history and heritage there within the sport, but I think there's no question the fact of, you know, winning back-to-back World Championships in 2006, 2007, and made it one of the best-selling cars in the world.
There is no better example of an impact a top WRC car can have on its road car cousin than the Subaru Impreza. Introduced to the WRC in 1993 with the sole purpose to get the brand away from industrial machinery and onto the motorways worldwide. With a wild-driving Colin McRae behind the wheel, the Subaru Impreza became an instant success among the young rally fans around the world.
You know, Colin really was a lot to do with it as well. It really showed the car off for, you know, just how it worked and handled, and it was a great scene to watch on the stage, and his antics. And a lot of the other drivers as well were very good in the car, and we had lots of good strong results, and we seemed to dominate for quite a while. You know, the team was very young and fresh, and it was like a fresh look in the rallying, you know.
Impreza won 3 consecutive manufacturers' titles in 95, 96 and 97, and 3 drivers' championships with Colin McRae, Richard Burns and Petter Solberg.
You're the best in the world!
Even whilst the Impreza was still competing in the WRC in 2007, both drivers and co-drivers knew exactly why the car had already achieved legendary status.
I think it's the fact that you can nearly buy the same car on the street, and like some of my mates have got WRXs, and like it's not such a different car to what I race, so it's pretty cool, and like they're good fun to drive.
Your road car is almost the same, or it's exactly the same layout. You can't buy a four-wheel drive turbocharged Ford Focus, for instance, but I think that's another reason why the Impreza has been so popular and so successful, is that you can actually go in the showroom, buy a blue one with gold wheels, boxer engine, exactly the same layout as the rally car. So probably that's one of the biggest reasons it's been so popular.
WRC made the Subaru Impreza a household name around the world, and the cars are still rolling off the production line in their thousands.
We learnt an awful lot through our relationship with Subaru, and the iconic status of the blue and yellow cars that you still see on the streets today. To see that develop and the way it sort of expressed itself in the marketplace, and the result of the change of image of Subaru, the sales that they benefited from, was quite extraordinary for us.
Coming up, Christian Loriot shows us the differences between a road-going Ford Focus and its WRC counterpart, and the pressure is building at pro drivers as they prepare to fire up the WRC Mini for the first time.
Everything on the engine side is completely new. It's a completely new engine.
Welcome back. Coming up soon, the Mini fires up for the very first time. But before that, let's take a look at the exact differences between a road car and a rally car.
My name is Christian Loyo. I'm Technical Director for Ford World Rally Team, and I'm going to take you through the difference between the Focus RS road car and the Focus WRC World Rally Car here. On the rally car, we modified the body shell to put the roll cage for two main reasons. One, it stiffens the car and gives it a better handling, and second, it provides more safety for the big accident that you sometimes see on the rallying. The second main difference is the aerodynamic package. The World Rally car is different bumper with different aero device here in the front and a different rear wing. It's quite big. These two are done within specific FIA regulations. The third big difference is that the World Rally car is a bit wider. We're allowed to widen the car to 1800mm so that everybody's got the same width of car and effectively the same performance between different manufacturers. Under the bonnet, this unit develops 305 horsepower and 440 Nm of torque. It's driving the front wheels only in this instance. Okay, now comparing to the World Rally car engine, there you find a completely different engine bay. Still a turbo engine, this time a 4-cylinder 2-litre, and that allows us to get 330 horsepower this time and up to 800 Nm of torque. The engine is then driving a full 4-wheel drive transmission system, as it is the regulation in World Rally Championship. And now looking at the interior, this is a really nice, sport, sophisticated road car. So here you've got everything you need, all the instrument panel, a very nice stereo that you couldn't hear in a rally car probably, a very nice sporty 6-speed gearbox but manual, where in a World Rally car we've got an automated gearbox with paddle shift on the steering wheel. Very important, the fourth power button that we all like, and we've transplanted from the road car into the rally cars. And now the rally car, a bit less comfy to get in, but built for speed, not comfort this time. You've got the paddle shift for the 5-speed automatic gearbox up and down. The dashboard is exactly the same shape as the road car, but this time very light carbon fiber. All the control panel for the driver and the co-driver, and a famous fourth power button to start the car. Unfortunately, one of these World Rally cars will set you off close to 500,000 euros. So not accessible to everybody.
As we say goodbye to great cars like the Focus, let's return to witness the birth of the new generation. This is ProDrive's test track in Warwickshire. BMW Motorsport have supplied the engine for the Mini and will be in attendance as it's fired up for the first time. The atmosphere is thick with a feeling of nervous excitement.
The hard bit with a rally car is every rally is so completely different. We've got to be sure the car works in snow and ice and mud and gravel and dry tarmac and wet tarmac and rough and smooth. So the process of testing a rally car takes longer than it does for a race car. We have to be patient and make sure that the car works everywhere. So this is a very important stage. This is where we check 95% of all the hard work over the last 9 months or so. We should be confident that the basic function of the whole car is as we intended, that all the cooling, lubrication, all the electronics are working, the steering, the brakes, the suspension goes up and down, the wheels go around, there are no oil leaks, no water leaks, all that sort of thing.
Small concern with some grease coming out of the dry shaft boots, but whilst we're under here, just taking the opportunity to look round and check anything else. So far so good.
effectively that's the first time the car's turned a wheel, and all we're doing at the moment is looking at all the data and making sure everything's working as it should. You know, the engine guys been very cautious about looking at all the feedback from all the sensors and so on. But from a driving point of view, it seems to work fine straight out the box. The car, and the engine in particular, is crawling in sensors that give all kinds of feedback to the engineers that you couldn't possibly feel.
But this is the throttle here? Yeah. That's the high jump.
Everything on the engine side is completely new. It's a completely new engine with new electronics, hardware and software. So it really is a refining all the engine mapping and the control of fuel pressure and throttle position, and there's 1,000 parameters that we need to sort of tune in the car. For the first day, I'm happy with that. Things took a while to get going this morning because, as we expected, we had lots of electronic stuff to dial in and check the settings and so on. But as the day's gone on, we've got a little bit faster, and things are working the way they should. So we're able to get a bit of an impression as to what's to come, and it feels good. It is a great feeling to feel hear the engine fire up and feel the car move under its own steam, and turn the steering wheel to the left and the car goes left, and press the brake pedal and the car slows down. All those things, although they sound obvious, there's still nothing quite like feeling it all working to sort of reassure everybody that we're going in the right direction.
As Mini continue their preparations, let's look back now to a rally car that proved to be a saviour to its manufacturer. The Peugeot 205 T16 made its debut on the roads of Corsica in 1984, becoming an instant yardstick for the rest. The following year, in 1985, it won both drivers' and manufacturers' titles, making it a huge hit.
It was a special car because at this time, it was the only one car who was thought very cleverly, with a central engine, four-wheel drive, a turbocharged engine, and it was really the first rally car made for rally at this period. I was test driver during the development, that means in 83, also in 84, and in 84 I drove for the first 3 rallies.
The team was led by Jean Todt, current president of the FIA, and with his crew of designers, engineers and drivers, created the massive 500 horsepower engine, securing 16 World Championship victories, with 2 drivers and manufacturers' titles in 1985 and 86.
We had at this time the best driver in the world possible. Harry Vatanen, Kankkunen, Timo Salonen, French, Bruno Sabi, 1 or 2 times Michel Mouton. It was a dream team at this time.
The success the rally team enjoyed was even more crucial for Peugeot.
Peugeot 205, not only as a fantastic car and a revolutionary concept, but also Peugeot 205, played an important role in rescuing Peugeot from that they were on the brink of the collapse at that time, and without 205, it would have gone belly up.
205 was on the production line from 1983 to 1997. It sold over 5.3 million units, was crowned Car of the Decade by Car Magazine in 1990, and gave us one of the greatest rally cars of all time. Take a breather, as after the break we will look to the future as Citroën and Ford discuss their new cars for the 2011 season, and the going gets tough for the Mini as it's prepared for its first run on gravel. Welcome back. This is Road Car to Rally Car. New FIA regulations for 2011 mean that Mini aren't the only ones who have been busy. Citroën and Ford have been preparing their brand new cars that will battle the Countryman. At this stage, both projects are going well.
First of all, I'm delighted because I think the car looks absolutely stunning. But of course, now the real work starts.
The car is more reactive, a bit more nervous, but it's interesting to drive it. You have to fight a bit more inside the car.
Fresh start for everybody, new cars, and for me it's going to be very interesting to start developing a new car.
Citroën say au revoir to the all-conquering C4 and bonjour to the stylish DS3. Sebastian's Loeb and Ogier will drive for the team next season, and both have already been behind the wheel of their new machine.
It's different from the C4, it's smaller, so it's shorter, wider, so it makes it more nervous, but the feeling was good. It's very different to drive, so it's a new challenge to drive it.
The torque is something like the half of this car, so it's less power, but still the car is performant and still the car is fast. So the gearbox as well is different because we have to come back with manual selection, and it's a bit different, but yeah, it's okay. It's a nice car to drive.
It's smaller, so the car is easier to drive. It will be. I think it will be more a racing car than have been the C4, and it will be more enjoyable for the drivers to get this car. But with the new regulation, I think it will be not as fast as could have been the C4. But I think the drivers will enjoy it. They will enjoy with this car.
For Ford, the new era sees a switch from the Focus that has served them for more than a decade to the smaller, sleeker Fiesta.
We've looked at what was the strong points of the Focus, but we've also concentrated on looking at where we need to improve, which is asphalt rallies and things like that. The Focus was a big car, and it's a lot of car to get through the air, so at least we've got a big advantage now with the Fiesta being it's right on the dimensions of the new FIA regulations.
Because you start with a small car which is narrow, you're allowed to widen it up to 1820 millimeters. So you've got a lot to play with the styling and the aerodynamics and so on. And it's nice because it makes a car that looks a lot more aggressive and exciting.
Basically all the information I have got from the Super 2000 guys, that the Super 2000 car has been very good with the balance of the car. So that gives me a good confidence that I believe the car will be good to drive.
There is still plenty of work ahead for Ford and Citroën, but the targets are already being set.
For Citroën Racing, the only objective is to win, so we'll try to do the same.
Okay, historically, every car that we've brought out of the stable on its debut event, we've always set fastest times, and I really don't see any reason why the new World Rally Car Fiesta isn't going to be competitive when we go to Sweden.
Mini were doing their best to make sure that they can fight Ford and Citroën from the moment they enter the championship. This is their top secret test location in Portugal. A tangible nervous tension filled the early morning atmosphere as the Countryman was prepared for its first ever gravel test. It was now time for a top-level driver to take the wheel, and the motorsports press was buzzing with speculation as to who that driver might be. Cue the arrival of British driver Chris Meek, a protege of the late, great Colin McRae. The perfect match for the re-entry of Mini into the World Championship.
There's nothing quite like putting the driver in and getting his feedback and putting it through its paces. You can't, no matter how much time you put the car on the old shaker rigs and rig tests and so on, there's nothing like driving it down a dusty, rough gravel road at 30 degrees and see how it all behaves.
You want raw feedback. You don't want to tell you what they think the car, it needs. You don't want to tell you whether it's springs, roll bars, aero or power. What you actually want is raw information. You just tell me what the car's doing in your own words. Don't make it up. Just if you can't feel it, then great, you can't feel it. That's what we're looking for as engineers to go forward.
The highly rated Chris Meek carries the hopes of all British rally fans on his shoulders. This is the moment they and he have been waiting for.
It's great to be crossing paths with ProDrive at this stage of my career. You know, I've always chased an opportunity in the full-time factory drive, and especially with such an iconic brand as Mini coming back into rallying. Obviously the history going back to the old Monte Carlo rallies with Paddy Hopkirk, and I'd say there's so many things that make it, you know, quite special for me to be involved, and I say it's going to be a big step for me, but I'm really looking forward to it.
It's great to get to this stage. We've had you know, 9 months or so of graft back in the design office, and you know, this is the moment where you actually get your hands on the equipment and see how well all the theory comes together, and you know, so far, I think, you know, it's going well. I
know the guys at ProDrive haven't been sitting on their hands for 18 months. You know, they've been hard at work doing all the investigations, knowing what areas to focus on, and as I say, even here on the first test, it was a great platform to work from, and it's just a case of refinement everywhere, right down to every detail, and I'd say those where the tenths of the seconds come from. The ultimate goal is to take the car right to the top and become world champion. That's, you know, I don't think anyone's in any doubt of that, where the goals lie, but I'd say we just have to take it step by step. Next year, I'm sure is about just finding our feet and seeing where we are.
103? Yeah, slightly, but I think we should let them have a look. We could probably live with that, but it hasn't stopped climbing, has it? It was still sneaking up.
One of the advantages of rallying compared to racing is that, you know, if there is a problem or if there is some discussion, you can actually sit in the passenger seat and experience it, and it helps to have a good understanding of what the car has to live with, and what is rough and what is smooth and what is twisty and all those sort of things. But also, every driver's way of describing things is different, and there's nothing quite like seeing what one driver calls understeer or what another driver calls oversteer, and see it for yourself and put a scale on their problem.
BMW Motorsport were out in Portugal too to see how their engine would bear up to the gravel test.
Did they say it's okay?
It's going to be really interesting to see how we fit together with BMW. For them, it's their first proper rally engine. It's a completely new set of regulations, and it's a new type of engine. It's a small capacity turbocharged engine. They've got a lot to do, but you know, you have to say, if you were going to choose a partner to do your engine, you'd struggle to find somebody better.
We have a feeling the engine's going to be quite a strong point, but as I say, there's so many areas on the car. I think the chassis lends itself to this category, and you know, compared to the DS3 and the Fiesta, it fits perfectly in that mold. So, as I say, you know, we have a long way to go. This is only my first ever day in the car.
We're going to try a very small, close-knit team, minimal process, minimal communication, you know, it's a formal communication.
Okay, fire? Yes, mate.
Keep it all close-knit and see if we can make things work in a different way. And so far, it seems to be working really well. You know, the guys all get on with each other very well. It is the same guys doing nearly everything, so they quickly get to work together as a team.
Another extremely interested observer arrives. Marcus Grönholm, the two-time world champion, was also in Portugal to run the countryman through its paces.
I understood they have run a lot of kilometers compared what I remember what we did in the past with the Peugeot, and we had a lot of problems at that point. Now the car is running already nicely without big problems. So now it's yeah, there is an engine development going on. This is in the early stage, I guess. A lot of other things with the shock absorbers, diff settings and chassis and everything.
This is really about us understanding how high is the mountain we've got to climb over the next 6 months. So far, we seem to be on track. We're learning all what we need. The feedback from the drivers, the data that we get here will help us to set out the development programme. But at the moment, there are no surprises. We seem to be in pretty good shape in terms of the basics of the chassis and so on. The engine, we are where we hope to be. We know there's quite a journey over the next 6 months, but we're really pleased that, frankly, we're actually in better shape than we hoped. So, fingers crossed, It's been a good first test for us.
I would be very disappointed if we weren't competitive out of the box. Now, competitive, winning events, that's something different. You can be competitive right up there at the front, and you always need the right bit of luck, the right driver behind the steering wheel to get those ultimate results. But looking at the work that's gone into this car, looking at the detailed approach we've taken to it, I've never been more confident about any car we've ever developed before.
The next step was an official launch at the Paris Motor Show, a public commitment by Mini to join the WRC fray from 2011.
I'm absolutely delighted that Mini is making a comeback on the World Rally circuit. And I'm sure that Mini fans are going to enjoy it as well.
I will say the legend is back, and I mean, as a FIA president, I'm very grateful to BMW to have taken this challenge with David Richards' team, and I'm very much looking to see the Mini on the road.
Mini and ProDrive believe they have designed a car to compete with the best that Ford and Citroën have. What they do know is that there can be no let up in the hard work and commitment already shown in building this road car into a rally car. This is the dawning of a new era for World Rally.